Hi, team. This is George. I hope you're really enjoying digging into the different topics and everything that we have. So, I want to kind of go over the categories and the topics. Now, if you have not received an email from me, you should have received that on Tuesday. So, if you haven't received an email from me stating what category you're going to be in, what category you have to pick your topic from, please let me know because that's important. So that actually happened Tuesday. So if I didn't get an email to you, that was my mistake. So please let me know. I believe I reached everyone. And in a couple of the emails, any email that I sent out, I'll just make a blanket statement. My fingers got going kind of quick on a couple of them, I think. Whatever's in your subject line is the category that you're in. So I made a mistake with the subject line, the body of the text on a couple emails. So just to kind of clear that up, whatever's in your subject line is the category that you're in. So let's talk about the categories. We have four categories. We have experimental, non-experimental, single subject, and survey. Experimental, think of that like high school science projects. You have a core group, you have a separate groups that you're going to test. You have your control group, which you do nothing to, and then you have another group that you're going to compare it to, where you manipulate an independent variable. In other words, you manipulate something that's happening or something that you're hoping will have a different reaction. So you compare the reaction from the control group to the experimental group and see if there's a difference. That's kind of the bottom line for experimental group. You manipulate the variable. The non-experimental is the exact opposite. You do not manipulate the variable, and you're just looking at different groups of people, and you're looking at the way something happens differently within groups or within individuals as well. So we have experimental, non-experimental, and then single subject. Single subject means, okay, remember an experimental means we had a control group and we had our other group over here that we did some sort of manipulation with an independent variable. What that means is this group remained the same. This group, we did something different. We want to see if there's a change and we wanted to measure the change. Well, in single subject, the individual is both the control and the experimental group. So, but think of it as an individual. So if I'm doing something, so I'm using this pen to do something and I do it, that's my control. So I do whatever I'm asked. Now the experiment part, I'm the same person, but I'm going to do it again with something changed. So I manipulated a variable. I'm going to see if there's a difference. So that's single subject. Now the interesting thing about single subject is you can have as many subjects as you like, but the reason why it's called single is because only the results from the individuals are compared. You can get an overall result, but the comparisons and the statistics are ran on the individual results because they are the control and the experimental group. We'll go over our topics in a moment. In survey, you use a survey to gather data is what it is. So that one's quite a bit self-explanatory. So to get to where we need to go, you go to your research project overview, and we go to research project. And that gives us our timelines. Oops, I took this wrong spot. I'm sorry. Oh, topic sign up. So we go to this right here, research part 1. And then it'll come around and we have research project topics right here. Now I already downloaded that and it looks like this. So we have a learning color experiment. So I'm not going. Part of the process of research is figuring out the categories we belong in. Believe it or not, we discuss this, talk about this, banter ideas back and forth. No matter how often you do this, it's just a very good experience to be able to do that. So that's why I'm not just saying, well, this learning and color experiment belongs in this category, because it's valuable to have that discussion and thought process within your own mind as well to pick one of these. So I'm going to pick a couple at random. And then I'm going to walk you through the process. So let's pick first learning and color experiment. What is that experiment? Could the color of a paper used in a test or assignment have an impact on academic performance? Okay. Create an assignment or test placed on a different colored paper and test for change related to the colored paper. So if it's a single subject, remember we're going to have one person do both. If it's an experimental, we're going to have a group be the control group, and then the experimental group will be doing it on the paper. So you could set that out a couple different ways. So the way to think this through is who's involved, how am I going to get the data, and how am I going to use that data. So in this case, if we're looking at some of these fall within a couple different categories depending on how you set them up. So learning and color experiment. If I want to set this up as experimental, what's the requirement for experimental? I have a control group and I have an experimental group where I manipulate a variable. So if I have one group of people do it on a normal sheet of paper, another group do it on a colored sheet of paper, my variable is the color of the paper, and I have a control and experimental group. So now you could compare what they call means. We can get into that a little bit deeper later. I just want to kind of give you a high-level overview. If you have an individual, what could be difficult about an individual here is you have them take it once, then you have them take it on a colored sheet of paper as well. Well, that could be difficult because what happens once they take the test, they already know the answer, so they could automatically do better. So you can still do that, but you have to statistically work that through. And then let's pick influence of positive and negative ads. Determine whether people are most likely to be swayed by positive and or by negative ads. Utilizing a positive or negative ad for a political candidate, determine which influence the selection more. So is it going to be a survey? Are we going to hand out a survey? We might be able to. That's one possibility. Depends how you build the survey. You'd have to have those positive and negative ads built into the survey. Are you going to make it experimental? In other words, are you going to have one group looking at one set of ads, one group looking at another set of ads, and you compare? You're going to make it individual, where you have the individual looking at both and seeing if their decisions or selections change. That's kind of an interesting way to look at it. So you can look at it as a single subject, where you're just looking at individuals and seeing if they move back and forth, which is probably the easiest for this one. Or you could use an experimental, where you just change the variable from one group to another. So now non-experimental, what could that be? Let's see, social networking and real life interaction. Does an online networking make people more or less likely to interact with people in real life? Determine the number of hours spent in social networking and comparing with interaction of same people in real life. How would you figure that out? Could a survey do that? Could a self-report survey do that? Sure. Could it be non-experimental because you don't have a variable to manipulate? So going out, and if it was non-experimental, you'd actually have to do the measuring. So that'd be very difficult to do. Could be done, but it'd be very intrusive and difficult. So most likely that one would be best for a survey. So walk through these, and that's kind of the process that you take to go through these. So I hope this helps. And as you put in your selections on the discussions, I'm going to be going through them as well and kind of walking through the process, because sometimes it's okay if you put something down you're wrong. That's just a learning experience that we can re-walk through the process. So don't feel intimidated by what you put down. Put it down and we learn from it. It's not going to be, you're not going to fail because of a wrong choice. So have some fun with it, kind of wrestle with it, because that's what we do as researchers. We wrestle a lot with data and all this other stuff. So have a fantastic week, and I look forward to seeing what you put on there.